Hi, I'm Al Mackay. In this tutorial I'm just going to give a quick rundown on just kind of a basic introduction to Max particle systems and what you can do with them. Just as a quick demonstration, I'll have like an emitting object here, and actually just through the particle systems PRA, just drag that out, and in the modify panel select the emitting object. And from here set the percentage of particles to be 100% and set the user rate to 1000. The other thing is, let's say I just set it to emit and stop emitting at 0 to 5 frames. So that way we get that. I set the speed to 0, that way they just go and emanate off of the surface and sit there. If we go to the create panel, just go to P-bomb. And let's drag that into the viewport here and align it to the sphere so that way it's in the very center. And then I bind it to the particle system. From here I set the strength to about 0.2, duration can be 100 frames, start at 0, so that way it's always pushing it out. I'll set the strength right down. Then I'll just create a drag. And once again I bind that. And that way it gets to slow down over time. So set that like 75, it's going to stop a lot quicker. And just as a demonstration of how to use the commands here, I could set like $parry01.life equals 100, and that way it lasts for 100 frames. Okay, now I'm going to go and create a wind, bind that, set 0 strength, 0.5 turbulence, 2.0 frequency, 0.1 scale, and now I'm getting a nice kind of trailing effect. Oh, sorry, not a trailing, a more kind of turbulent effect happening. Then I set this up to be, let's say, dots and distinct points 50. Set to like 1000 and emit for 10 frames. From here I can actually then go to particle spawn, spawn trails 3 with 5 direction chaos, speed 100%, slow factor 3 lifespan. I'll actually go back to entire surface again. This way we're going to get more kind of explosion happening, and I'll still preview that way we can see it a bit more in real time. Lastly, before I do this, might set, let's say, the variation of the life to 25%, and we'll just quickly do a preview in make that white and hide the sphere in wireframe mode. This is a quick example of how we could get kind of like a, not a starburst, but kind of energy breaking off of the surface of a planet or something like that if you wanted to. You know, it's more of just a quick example of how you can get the kind of effects that you want rather easily with just a quick few space warps applied. It does take a while to preview, but actually, that's one thing we could actually do is just set the lifespan to be about 25%. However, I'll do a preview of what we've got so far. Here we've got a nice kind of effect where it's breaking off the surface like that. We'll go one step further, and this might get a little bit more complicated, but we can get a nice kind of more noisy pattern to begin with when it's coming off the surface. So I want to hide what we have but bring out the sphere that we originally had, and I set the segments to 200 and apply a volume select. Set the vertex, but before we go any further I'm going to create a new noise, make it fractal and 10 levels, so that way we have this fractal pattern here. But then I set the output, enable color map. I'm just going to quickly, basically insert 3 points, and first point is 0.55, second point is 0.5, third is 0.45. And then when I select the middle one, set the value to 1, and we get this kind of electrical pattern. It's the same as using the blur electric texture map, but we're going to do it ourselves. Now if I bring up volume select here, go to texture map and drag it down into the slot here, we can actually see what it's doing. It's got a nice kind of electrical pattern mapped around it and as a selection. So I can set the output amount to 2, so that way it's really bright, and the size to about 17. Now we get a nice kind of selection. So unhide everything and hide the sphere since we don't really need it. And just in here I'm going to go to add all vertices, use selected sub-objects. That way it's going to use our volume select as the area to emit the particles from. Now I'm going to set the lifespan to about 25 and variation to 15. My speed to about 0.5 with 10% variation, just to give it a bit more noisiness. And go down to multiplier and set it back to 1 with direction chaos of about 2. This at least gives us kind of a point to start with. As you can see, we're getting a nice kind of pattern right off the bat. So I'll quickly do a preview of this now. So we can see the effect that we're getting. It's a nice kind of initial kind of plasmary blast, as if it was coming off of a surface. Like, let's say if it was a mixture of lava and I don't know, ground or rock, and that way it's coming from all the lava areas or whatever. Essentially, it's just a good example of how to control a few neat techniques and to plug them all together. And the thing is, you can adjust any of this stuff and it all works hand in hand. The volume select, all that stuff's procedural. So if you adjust the texture map, it automatically updates the particles and everything, you know, right there and then. So it's just a neat way to have things not necessarily uniformly emit from a surface, but from actual patterns on the actual surface. So you know, that's just a quick example, and you know, keep playing with it and build it into something else that you want.